Hello and welcome back to We Are the Arsenal. I'm your host JC. I hope you're doing well. Today I bring you the very first Arsenal Analysed video on the channel, a series that I hope to continue to bring you all the way up until the end of the season, especially if it does well. And we'll be running through, breaking down everything that happened in Arsenal's most recent game, Wolves versus Arsenal, with Arsenal running out 1-0 victors. A tough game to say the least. And with it being Arsenal, it's always eventful. Now, if you're new around here, I'd really appreciate it if you did subscribe to the channel. It massively helps me out. Drop a like on the video as well if you go on to enjoy. But let's waste no more time at all and jump straight into the thick of things. And a good place to start would be the lineup. And the only question mark really was Cedric at right back, a player that I've been fairly critical of recently. Before Chambers left the club, I was of the opinion it should be Chambers starting behind Tomiyasu when he's unavailable. He still faces fitness concerns. We'll have to wait and see if he's available for the Brentford game. But I half expected Ben White to play right back and Holding to partner Gabriel at centre-back. But credit where credit's due, Cedric had a fantastic game. And the rest of the squad, when fit and available, really picks itself. The only question that you could ask is, where do you fit Smith Rowe into this lineup? But it's a good headache for Arteta to have, and it always seems to be the first substitute that Arteta goes for, regardless of what the score is. Maybe he could have made that change a little earlier in the game. Odegaard was playing fairly well yesterday, and I've seen some comments on social media questioning why Odegaard was brought off. The Holding substitution made a lot of sense. Martinelli had been sent off at that point, and we really needed to make sure that we were defensively solid. And then Nketiah coming on. I know it was late in the game. Again, a lot of people have asked why Pepe hasn't come on, especially with the form that he showed at the African Cup of Nations. And it somewhat tells me that the writing's on the wall with this one. He's only got 2 years left on his contract come the summer. And if he was going to be used, surely, just surely, this would have been the game to use him instead of Nketiah, who clearly doesn't want to sign a contract at the club. Moving on, we've got statistics and tactics from the game. And when we look at the statistics on one side, yes, Wolves did dominate possession. But I think where this is skewed just slightly is that last 20 minutes of the game, it was pretty much all Wolves with Arsenal boxed in, defending for their lives. And the defenders in general, which we'll come onto in a later part of this video, showed some fantastic stats, a great defensive display. At the end of the first half, it was much more equal. And I think Arsenal had even had more shots in total compared to Wolves at the end of the first half. But, you know, with these games, there are turning points. There are momentum switches as such. The other thing that really concerns me there is that Wolves and Arsenal with a similar foul count, 12 and 13 respectively. But Wolves, they're not being disciplined in the same fashion Arsenal are with our 5 compared to their 2 yellow cards. There was a particular challenge in the first half, Kilman on Martinelli, which he didn't get a booking for. Martinelli got a second bookable offence for a very similar challenge in the second half, which eventually led to him being sent off in the space of 5 seconds. With regards to shots, we have created more opportunities than this in previous games. But when you do go down to 10 men, it is tough. Only Manchester City have conceded fewer goals this season than Wolves. So for us to come away with a 1-0 win, having gone down to 10 men, yes, we were 1-0 up at this point, really speaks volumes. And it really shows that winning ugly is the very best thing. So these boys dug deep. Now, if we have a look on the other side of this particular slide, we can see here that Arsenal, again, like previous weeks, it seems to be a regular occurrence. Arsenal looking to play high and wide all the time, really relying on the likes of Bukayo Saka, Martinelli, even Emile Smith-Rowe when he does get a sniff. And if we do look here, we've got Martin Odegaard and Bukayo Saka very close to each other on the right-hand side. Bukayo Saka, yet again, the furthest player forward, which is a theme for Arsenal generally. And again, Martinelli on the left-hand side. There seems to be a big void in that so-called striker position. We do know that Lacazette likes to drop deep and link up play very nicely. But this just further shows how much Arsenal are absolutely screaming out for a centre-forward at the moment. Centre-backs, nice and compact there with Thomas Partey in the centre and full-backs pushing on, making those numbers up in midfield to a very typical Arsenal shape in that 4-2-3-1 formation. No real surprises or concerns in there for me. Had we have kept 10 men on the pitch, would it have been 2-0? Would it have been a different story? Very, very difficult to say. But generally speaking, our shape offensively and defensively yesterday was absolutely fantastic. Super, super proud of the boys. Now, running through some key moments in the game, the obvious one, which we can see here in the top left-hand corner, is Gabriel's goal. Seems straightforward enough in terms of the tap-in that Gabriel had. Great knock-in from White, but where there's been a few question marks, especially from those Wolves fans, is whether or not it was a legal challenge with the goalkeeper when Lacazette and the goalkeeper collided. It does seem as though Lacazette did get there just before him nicking the ball in the process, hence why when VAR did review this, it wasn't really questioned or needing to be reviewed by the referee. Now, just underneath, this came after the sending off from Martinelli, which we'll get into last. We can see here, this is Lacazette. I think it was in the 71st, 72nd minute. Look, Lacazette was fantastic yesterday. Really linked up play well. He's a role model. You know, he was essentially part of the reason why we ended up getting the first goal. And a lot of the good things that we did yesterday came through Lacazette linking up play. He had another fantastic opportunity in the first half, which was essentially single-handedly created by Bukayo Saka. But the picture that I'm showing you on screen at the moment, the reason I wanted to bring it to your attention, I don't want to slam Lacazette here, but it just, again, as I mentioned earlier, highlights that if we had a clinical top striker, we'd probably make the game 2-0 at this point, and we weren't to know that the game was going to finish 1-0, and this could have been game, set, and match, nail in the coffin, if you will. Unfortunately, the ball does go just wide. And again, a lot of people saying that Lacazette has apparently been offered a 1-year extension beyond the summer. Arsenal shouldn't be doing this. We should be focusing on maybe another prolific world-class striker, which I agree with, but Lacazette isn't a bad option to have coming off the bench at the moment. Now, probably the biggest talking point of the game, the Martinelli situation. And I'll talk more about this in my upcoming podcast that I'm looking to run this Sunday, the Arsenal Detox podcast, the very first in the episode series. And we'll be talking about this at length. Now, for me, individually, in isolation, they're probably yellow cards on their own. But the argument is from a moral point of view that Martinelli wasn't aware that he was on a yellow card after the first challenge or the push from the throw-in, shall we say. Now, in a lot of cases, when a player has that in the back of their minds, they typically tend to tread far more carefully moving forward with the types of challenges they make. And there's an argument to suggest that Martinelli wouldn't have made that particular challenge for the second bookable offence. And as you can appreciate, this has been highlighted in the media all throughout the day, all different types of professionals. Arteta wants to speak with the refereeing association. Rio Ferdinand wasn't happy and even suggested that the referee wanted to make the headlines. A former referee, Keith Hackett, has even come out and questioned the decision, with it being not very moral when he should have used his common sense. So looking at this from both points of view, yes, Martinelli shouldn't have put himself in this position. Quite naive of him. Obviously, you know, he wants to make a good impression, but at the same time, the referee, yet again, putting himself in the headlines unnecessarily. And I don't blame Arteta for wanting to go and speak with the refereeing association, because it's getting a little bit beyond the joke now in terms of how many red cards Arsenal have received since he took charge. I think it's 15, which is absolutely ridiculous. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Now, 3 players that I wanted to speak about very briefly, key players in my opinion. There could have been other notable mentions. Bukayo Saka had a very good game on the right-hand side, always a threat, constantly being taken out in that first half. And Cedric, as I've already mentioned, also very, very good. But the 3 main players that I'd like to speak about in today's video is Ben White, Rob Holding, who came on for 19 minutes, and Gabriel, who was my man of the match, as well as many, many others. I just think defensively, this was such a solid display. And if we take ourselves back 2-3 years ago, this would have been the type of performance where Arsenal would have quite literally thrown everything away and probably would have ended up losing the game. But these boys are really, really, really showing what they're made of and showing that they're willing to work really, really hard for each other as well. So looking at Ben White, heat maps, I'm not really too concerned with, because it was quite a defensive display in that last 20 minutes. Although on the ball, they were both very, very good at bringing it out of defence And funnily enough, the chance that I just highlighted for Lacazette in the second half that he should have scored was actually a pass from Gabriel. And if you can't remember it, you definitely need to go back and watch it, because it's the type of pass that you would probably expect and associate with someone like Martin Odegaard. Anyway, Ben White standing tall, 5 clearances, 1 block, 2 tackles, 6 successful duels out of 10. Rob Holding, who was on for 19 minutes, made the most clearances out of any player on the pitch. 9, 1 block, 1 interception, winning 3 out of 3 aerial duels and only touched the ball 19 times. Gabriel, 5 clearances, 2 tackles, 6 successful duels as both ground and aerially out of 7. 86% passing accuracy, which is fantastic for a ball-playing defender. And 2 key passes, which is one of the highest on the pitch. And he plays centre-back, one of which was that pass just mentioned to Lacazette. So all in all, when we look at these defensive stats, what you want from your centre-backs, whether or not you're leading 1-0, whether you're leading 5-0, whether you're down to 10 men, whether you're down to 9 men, these are the sorts of performances that you expect and you want from your defending players. And I could have even included stats from Cedric and Kieran Tierney as well. Thomas Partey, Granit Xhaka all played very, very well defensively, including their shape. We would have been here all night, and I would have had slide after slide for you lot to digest. But I've just picked my top 3. Let me know who yours were down in the comments below. And as promised, over on Twitter, in the morning of each game, as well as during my preview that I record on the channel, I ask everyone to give me their score predictions. And whether you're right or wrong, I will give you a shout out, or to as many as possible. So we've got Melanie here who said Arsenal was going to win 2-0. We've got Judge Dread the Law, 2-1 to Arsenal. David Dunn, 2-1 to Arsenal also. We've got Tim, he went 2-1 to Arsenal, highlighting the fact that we needed to win after both Spurs and United slipped up. Neil from Cannon FC went strong with a 3-1 victory to the Arsenal. And also Keith, who runs his channel over at Mostly Arsenal. Go check him out. Also went really, really strong at 3-1. So big all yourselves up for coming over and making your predictions. And as I said, if you do want to feature in a future video, make sure you comment on my preview videos and make sure you comment on my Twitter posts if you follow me over on Twitter. So that is going to about wrap things up for the very first episode in a new series, Arsenal Analysed. I hope you have enjoyed. Do subscribe if you're new around here and drop a like if you have enjoyed the video. As already mentioned, I'm looking to bring you the very first episode of my brand new podcast this Sunday, the Arsenal Detox, where we'll be covering some of today's talking points in much more detail with a number of guests, plus a load of other key talking points surrounding Arsenal Football Club from this week. So make sure that notification bell is on so that you don't miss out. But that is going to about wrap things up for today. Thank you very much for tuning in, and I will catch you Sunday, if not next week, after the Brentford game. Take care. Stay safe.